So in the previous video, we saw how to create a composition using the EHR base SDK as well as the openEHR toolkit. So in most of these cases, you had to first make an example composition and then bind it to your user interface somehow. Because finally, the way you're actually going to be making compositions is by asking user input, right? So it's going to be a doctor or a nurse who's going to be filling out this form. So there is also another way, and this is created by our own team at Medblocks. So we call it Medblocks UI. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can create your own compositions using Medblocks UI. So I'm going to be showing you this issue on GitHub on the EHR base forum. So here there is someone who wants to create a composition and they got some error, and they've also given us the OPT file. So what we'll be doing is first, okay, it looks like a blood pressure archetype, and yeah, it seems pretty simple. Let's go ahead and just download the OPT file first. So let's save that. And Medblocks UI is actually a collection of UI components, and I'll tell you how we are going to use this. So first, I'm going to go into this repository called All Forms. So this is available on GitHub. You can just go to github.com/medblocks all forms, and this is open source as well. You can just clone this. This is what I'm going to be using right now. And right now I'm in this branch called OPD visit. We are kind of doing some OPD form. So an OPD is the outpatient department, if you didn't know that. So let me just do npm run dev. You need to do an npm install before you do this. So I'm just going to make this a little bigger for you. So this whole project is actually running on a front-end framework called Svelte. And you need not necessarily use Svelte, but it's pretty nice, and that's what we've been using at Medblocks. So here you can see that this renders this localhost 3000, and you can set your environment variables. And these are the two forms that are currently available right now, the allergy and the OPD form. You can just see that the allergy form looks like this. You can add multiple allergies, and all of these are actually based off of openEHR templates. So now what we are going to be doing is we are going to be making this template that this person has given us into a user interface that is usable by the end user. So by the end of this video, you will have a good idea about what Medblocks UI can do and what it can't do and how to use it in your own project. So we've downloaded the OPT file. So what I'm going to do is I am going to first open Insomnia. So we are inside Insomnia, and I already have an EHR based instance running using Docker. So I'm just going to get a list of all the templates, and you can see that there are no templates available right now. That's because it's a completely fresh instance of EHR base. So I'm just going to open the prescription.opt file, copy all of its contents, and paste it in as a template. And it's returned 204. That means that we are good to go. Let's list the templates again. And we can see that PEAT test shows up. So now what we need for Medblocks UI is that we need something called as the web template. So a web template is a simplification of the template standard, and it's easier to work with on front-end applications. So we'll be getting this web template. So luckily for us, EHR base actually has a endpoint to give us the web template. So all you need to do is use the EHR scape base URL and then the template and the template ID. So I'm just going to go into the environment variable and change the template ID here to PEAT test. That's already there. So once you click on this, I have some filtering going on right now. I'm just going to make this a little smaller so you can see this. So you can see that there is a filtering going on here. That is just the web template. So what the response that you will actually get will look something like this. I'm going to send this again. It'll look like this. But what we actually need is just the web template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do $0.web template. This is the same thing as copying and pasting whatever is in the web template object attribute. So I'm just going to copy this, and let's come back to our Svelte project. So in our Svelte project, we are in this particular branch. I'm just going to create a new branch and call it example blood pressure. Okay, so we've created our new branch. So I am first going to paste in whatever I've copied inside the templates directory. So blood pressure.json. And once you paste it, get rid of the array syntax, because that's what Insomnia does. It gives it in an array and we want it as an object. So make sure that it starts like this and it has a template ID, and immediately you need to have something called the tree. So that is the file inside templates. Now Medblocks UI has a VS Code extension and you can download it here, Medblocks UI. So I already have it running, so I don't need to download it. Oh god, someone's competing with us for the name. Anyway, so Medblocks UI VS Code extension, this is what you need to download and you will get something like this. And here we see all the different JSON that we have in our templates folder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm first going to create a new file under the forms directory. I'm going to call it blood pressure.svelte. Okay, so now this is where our form is going to live. Now Medblocks UI works on the basis of web components. So these are just like normal components, like normal HTML divs and spans, but then they are named differently and they are handled by JavaScript. They're actually handled by the framework that's making it. So we are going to be doing something very simple. We are just going to start with MB form. So that is nothing but Medblocks form. And that's just going to indicate to the, it just tells that, okay, you need this form going. And all of the package import and all that happens in the app.svelte. See, we are doing the import Medblocks UI. So just feel free to clone this repository and play around with this yourself. But after you do the MB form, we are just going to go to the Medblocks UI extension and look at all the things that are available. We are going to copy all of the snippets and paste it. So now what this does is that it automatically generates some snippets that are, that correspond to this particular element ID. So for example, right now, it still says that blood pressure has some mandatory elements missing, and that's because the 24-hour average, which I'm pretty sure you really don't want to measure, that's a lot of people do this mistake, but yeah, seems like he has not cancelled out the 24-hour average here. Most of the time you are measuring blood pressure currently, but if you are doing the 24-hour average, that's fine, you can keep that as well. But in this case, I'm just going to remove that from the template here. So the reason this is erroring out is because the width is not yet supported by Medblocks UI. Our team is currently working on this and it will probably be supported by the time you see this video. So you can check that out as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything with 24-hour average from the template. So once I do that, you see that we get a tick mark next to the blood pressure. That means that we are good to go and our template complies, our UI complies with this template. So now just before we actually get to see how this looks like, I need to wire this up to the router. So I'm just going to do that. So let's name this blood pressure, and the ID here is the name of the template ID. So I think it's Pete test. So you need this when posting, and the component is blood pressure, and the OPT. We haven't really given the OPT. So let's actually put the OPT inside the OPTs folder. You don't really need to do this. It's just so that you guys can download the OPT and play around with it. So that's why I'm doing this. So let's just call it ptest.opt. And I'm just going to paste all the content from the XML right here. So it's called ptest.opt. So let me update that here. ptest.opt. Okay. So now it's saved. Let's go back to our UI, and you can see that the blood pressure shows up, and you can also download the ptest.opt file. So let's go inside and do a refresh, and you can see that it shows systolic and diastolic. That's all that you really need in the from the template. So this is not enough. We also need some sort of a button to submit this. So I'm going to add that as well. So I'm just going to add that right here, MB form. Sorry, not MB form. It's called MB submit. So this indicates that you want to submit this, and I'm just going to put a button inside. So I can just go with a normal button and call it submit, and that will be there. But then since we are using Tailwind CSS, the button has no styling at all. So I'm just going to go with the shoelace button. This is another web component library that we are using to make things look nice. So we've got our button. So we can make it look a little bit nicer. So that makes it look a little nicer. So now the spacing is a little cramped up here. So I'm just going to give the form a few classes, flex column, and let's give it a gap of 3. So all of this is okay. Not sure why that's not loading, but oh, sorry, the CALASS class, yeah, class. So now we see that the gap is also looking a little bit nicer. If we want, we can give this a nice padding and make it look like. Why don't we add some shadows to this? Shadows. So now it looks like it's inside a box. Now let's make it rounded. Okay, that rounding doesn't. We need a lot more rounding. Okay, now let's give it a border also. Let's just give it a B2, or just let's give it a border. Okay, fine. Now it looks like it's in a form. All of the styling is up to you. You can make it look however you want. You don't really have to have the systolic and diastolic here. You can even hide the units. And right now the units automatically get selected when you do this. And since I already have my environment variables here set to EHR base, what this will do is it will automatically try to post it to EHR base every time I click on submit. So the EHR ID doesn't yet exist. So let's actually create this EHR ID. So I'm just going to put a new EHR, and this EHR ID is already in my environment variable. So I'm just going to put that, and make sure you copy this value and not this value. Okay, and just copy that, and I'm just saving this. So once you save that, come back to blood pressure, and here is the moment of truth. I'm just going to open my console because sometimes there is an error, and it also console.logs the whole composition. So I'm just going to click on submit, and you can see that the composition has been submitted to the CDR. If you want to look at how the composition looks like, you can too. So that's about it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be committing these changes, and I'm going to push it live. So added blood pressure example. So I'm just this is so that you can see this and maybe make it your own. So I'm just going to create a pull request, and I already have Netlify set up so that all of these changes automatically get pushed to a particular URL. So I'm just going to go to all forms and look at the pull request. Example blood pressure. It's still building. All right. Repeatable elements. I'm just going to wait for this to finish building. So once this finishes building, we'll get a preview URL, and seems like there might be a few merge commits. So I'm going to fix that as well. So I'm going to make this available for you. I'm going to make the URL available so that you can play around with this, and the GitHub repository, I'll put it down in the description. So check it out. And if you have any questions, or if you think something is not working, if you have any bugs with the Medblocks UI components or the VS Code extension, just go to the GitHub repository and raise an issue. Most of this code, we are just doing it ourselves. We are writing it ourselves. So I'll make sure that we take a look at that. And thanks again for watching. So the Medblocks UI framework can actually be used to make pretty complicated forms. Let me show you another form that we are creating. Okay, so this has deployed. So let's just go to this URL. If you go to this particular URL, you will see a live deployment here, and here none of the environment variables will be set. So when that is happening, it will just log to the console. It won't really post anywhere, but at least you can see this thing in the console. So we'll take a look at the OPD visit form. This has been created by two members of Medblocks, Nishta and Atul, and they've done a wonderful job of creating this whole form. It's pretty complicated, and you can see that Atul has actually worked on a lot of new elements. So this is a body site which has multiple cardinality. So you can have left foot, then right foot, and you can keep going like that. And these are all different modifying factors. And let's say that you have multiple thing. Let's say the factor is on lying down, there is no effect, and on sitting it worsens. So these things can be added like this. And again, if you go to all forms, you can see the contributors. Nishta has done a lot of work on this part of the form, and you can see that there are multiple sections to this form, and all of these are properly crafted. And you can take a look at this. You can download the template, you can play around with it, even submit compositions to your CDR. So to download the template, just click on this button and you will download the template. So I guess that's it for this video. And if you have any questions regarding Medblocks UI, or if you have any issues, please do let me know. You can always email me at siddharth@medblocks.org, and you can also raise issues on the Medblocks repositories. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.